Alrighty, folks, we are going to hit two very important topics for today's real estate environment. Step number one is going to be what is going on. I'm investing in a high price market and rents do not make sense. It's hard to get cash flow. It's hard to get yield. So we're going to talk about how I look at those environments. We're also going to pull up Yield Tracker and look at a deal in a high price market like Arizona. And then two, we are going to talk about how I consider make ready. What do I think about it? What kind of return or discount do I want? So we're going to break down these important topics with Mike from Rentometer. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Love these conversations. Again, you are, in this example here, you're looking at Arizona, and there are a lot of people looking at markets going, it doesn't make sense. Rents to price points doesn't make sense. So why don't you kind of set this up and we'll start digging in.
Okay. So our yield tracker and deal worksheet cover the whole U.S. So I always try and vary the markets that we're looking at just to appeal to different audiences. And I tend to focus in the middle of the country, the Midwest. That's where a lot of, rents are reasonable and property prices are reasonable. There's a decent balance. Right. So they tend to make sense, and there is yield and return to be found in those markets. But yesterday I was like, I haven't done Arizona. Let me try an Arizona property. And I had to, I'll share my screen.
All right. I will bring that up. Here we go.
I had to adapt my usual filters on I had to lower my minimum yield to 10%. Okay. I had to increase
double digits. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And I had to increase my max price to $450.
Yep.
And so then I get, I get 15 properties that fit that criteria. So the one I did a deep dive on was this 4932 West Hillman. And so I was looking at the property, and there's just no way it was going to pencil. The initial cash on cash was 4.1%. But what I stumbled across when I was looking at it was that when I went to the rent report to see a picture, decent looking property, sure. Looks like a nice area. The listing, looks like a lot of new finishes and things like that. But when I went to so this is listed at 198, I think 199. So when I went to the actual public records, I saw that the mortgage is 368. And the last price on it, last sold price, was 375. So I was like, interesting, what's going on here? So I went back and I said, all right, this looks like a distressed situation here. And the listing reads like it's going to be a short sale without saying it's going to be a short sale. And so I said, all right, what's going to make this pencil? So I just put in a 50. So let me take out the discount, and let me take out there's no improvements. So the initial cash on cash with the property taxes at 192 was 4.1%. So I said, what discount is going to get me over 15% cash on cash? So I messed around with it, and I said, just for fun, let's put 50 in. And so that gets you above that number. I just wonder how you approach this situation where it's not identified as an auction or a short sale yet, but it sure does read like a short sale. Do you stay away from it? Do you take a fly? Do you throw a number in?
Yeah. So what I would do, again, this is all stuff I hope people are doing. This is the beauty of having a buy box, because it allows you to focus and learn. Right. If this property had popped up in my buy box, the first thing I would do is I would call the listing agent. And I would say, hey, oh, by the way, I see your property at 123 Main Street. It fits my buy box. I look at these all the time. This one looks a little different than the others. And it might just be a data problem. I would always lean into, hey, it could be a data problem. But based on my research, it looks like there's a mortgage of 360 and you're selling it for 200. And if that's true, that means this is very much likely to be a short sale. Is that what's happening, or or have we had some kind of data corruption? And then I would just shut up and let the agent go. And the agent's likely going to say one of two things. Again, I've been doing this for 20 years. The first thing he or she might say is, oh my God, you're like the 17th person to call me on this. The data's wrong. They actually don't owe anything, yada, yada, yada. So they spew that. Or they're going to be, yep, you absolutely got this right. We have submitted the paperwork for a short sale. The lender is now requiring an offer before we considered. We don't know if it's going to go short sale or foreclosure, but we won't know anything until we get a legitimate offer, like written on, an offer agreement. Those would be one of the two things they say. And then from there, you make your decision.
Yep. Okay. So it's, in the offer you would go in with, I know it all depends how badly you want the property, but
yeah.
The numbers say somewhere close to a 40 or 50% discount will get you, above. Again, I use 15%. Somebody might use 10% because they like the market. They like, whatever. So
I only write offers that make sense to me. So, 15 is obviously pretty aggressive for Arizona. That's definitely more of a Midwest number. But let's just assume 10% for a moment. I would write that at that number, and then I would educate the agent. I'm writing it at this number because I expect a yield. I expect these things fully, and I would share this worksheet with them. So you're not hiding anything. And that if it's truly a short sale, the agent is hungry to get an offer, because at that point, they're going to find out if they have a deal or not, because there's still a likelihood the bank says no or the lender says no and they foreclose. But yeah, I'd be willing to submit that for sure at a number that makes sense.
And now they have their floor, so they have a stalking horse.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So cool. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Arizona. We can go to the other coast, the other side of the country, and go to Savannah, Georgia.
All right. What do you got going on there?
So I was looking at a deal in Savannah, Georgia. Can you see that? Yeah.
I can. Yeah. We're doing good. Yeah.
Was 37. So I was looking at this deal, and it penciled out fine. It was like north of 15%. But I hadn't put any make ready in, a small amount of make ready. And I left the rent as is, and it penciled. It's like, okay, this might work. And then I looked at the listing, or I looked at our pro report, and I'm on the street view right here for the pro report. And so I could tell, I looked at it a little more in depth. I could tell it's going to need some work. So I went back to the deal worksheet, and I said, I had 2,500. Let me just put 25,000 in, because I don't know.
Right.
And then I said, let me remove the discount here. Edit. Let me remove the discount here, and let me put this back. So 2,500. So the cash on cash, the initial cash on cash came in at 19.1, right?
Yep, I see it.
And then I said, well, let's just say it's going to need 25,000. So what happens? So now cash on cash is 12.7. First of all, it's been on the market for 196 days. That warrants a discount anyways.
Amen.
Right. And then you take the fact that it's going to need some improvement. After playing with it for a little while, the metric that I ended up with was for every dollar of cash improvement, I need $1.50 off on the price. So I ended up at 38.
Yep.
I ended up at 38,000, I believe it was.
Okay.
So that brings it back up.
Yeah.
Very a nice cash on cash return, right? So what's your view on the improvement side? If you see something that's going to need improvements, how do you handle it with the offer and things like that? Yeah,
so let's break this down, folks, because there's the make ready is an important one. And again, this is the power of having a buy box. This doesn't really work if you're all over the map, because price points are different. So when I'm evaluating properties, I put make ready into one of three buckets: A, B, or C. A means it's very close to turnkey, less than $1,000. B means basically lipstick, paint, carpet, clean the yards, stuff like that. And again, in your buy box, you should know what that is. In my market of Fresno, California, for the longest time, that was about 10 grand. today, after inflation and all of that, it could be as high as 15 grand.
Mhm.
And then C, that's kind of like a full gut. That's like, I got to do a bathroom or a kitchen or a fence or, all the AC, all of that stuff. So I think the first thing people need to do is figure out, what B and C look like in their markets. What does a lipstick remodel cost and what's a gut remodel cost? Because it'll be different. Maybe in Savannah, Georgia, it's 25 grand, but in, Austin, Texas, it's 40 grand. Right. So that's the power of a buy box and being disciplined, is you could go out and do research one time and have better data going in. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would probably try to get more comfortable on, because that's very much inside. That's like inside the house remodel. Like if you were to bring back up that picture to me, all I saw, again, I saw lots of work on the outside. And again, it's one view, so who knows? But anytime you have trees and all of that stuff close to the house, there's more work to do on the outside. So that's going to have a cost as well.
There you go. Falling down fence.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, just on the outside, I could see 12 grand to work, because that looks like a paint job that's not quite complete, and the roof. And it's just like, if this is what the outside looks like, what the heck might be on the inside? So again, one guy's opinion, 7 seconds looking at this feels like a $40,000 remodel, even more than 25, right? So you've got to, what I would tell a new investor is just understand A, B, or C, right? No, nothing, turnkey, lipstick, or big one. So that's what I would do. And then second, discounts. I think your 1.5 for every dollar makes sense. Again, I would communicate that with the listing agent, because again, you're going to be borrowing debt. However, once you close, you've got to take cash out of your bank to throw 40K in. These are all just communication points. But again, at the end of the day, every buyer, every offer, you need to have confidence, and you need to be able to talk intelligently about why you want the discount, why you're offering less, why you want closing cost credits, because you expect a cash on cash, in this case of 14%. So lean into this, get comfortable with the numbers. Don't frankly overestimate versus underestimate. And that's just get comfortable communicating that.
I like the A, B, and C, because intuitively I landed on that. Like the default on our deal worksheet is 2,500, which would be your kind of like it's turnkey. And when I look at these deals, I look at them, I say, that one is probably 7,500 or 10,000.
That's a
it
B.
looks okay, but it needs some cleanup here and there. And then there's this one here where it's like, ooh, this is gonna
that's heavy.
This is gonna need some work. So great. That's really helpful, and I appreciate your insight.
Yeah, very cool. Well, again, we're getting all of this data, the deal worksheet and all of that from Rentometer. Again, I think I have the website on the screen. They just go there, rentometer.com. What is it, /deal worksheet, or where do we send them?
Yeah, there's a tools menu there, and just look for the yield tracker and the deal worksheet. And Mike at rentometer.com if you have questions or anything like that.
There you go, folks. The CEO just gave you his email address. One more time, Mike. What is it?
Mike at rentometer.com.
Folks, do me a favor, send him a note, tell him hi, and thank you for being on One Rental at a Time, Mike. Take care.
Thank you.